Welcome everybody to the Amy Leisner Show. As you can see, or you'll hear in a minute, that I have a lovely guest with me. Lily is here, my friend, colleague, peer. I don't even know how to explain how our connection, but it's pretty awesome. So we're going to talk about motherhood and entrepreneurship. Is that how we would say it?
Sorry.
Yeah,
Yes.
being a mom and having a business. That's what we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to just hand it on over to Lily right away and have you introduce yourself. Tell us where you're from, what you do, how you got to where you are now, and then we'll get into babies.
Yay. Okay. So, yes, I'm Lily. I go by Lily Nicole in the online space, and I am a trainer of NLP and life coaches. So, I certify new and existing coaches who are just looking to kind of strengthen their toolbox in subconscious and somatic healing modalities. I also do some of my own coaching, like one-on-one coaching, business coaching, a lot of healing work, and just under the umbrella of coach. I don't even really know how to introduce myself these days, right? I'm a coach. And I, obviously we're going to talk about motherhood. So I'm a new mom. I have a 6-month-old baby. And it's interesting, like the story from kind of to getting here. This has always been one of like the images of my end goals was, well, I want to have a family one day and I don't want to be going into work all the time, right? That was really something that I felt. I was a teacher, a kindergarten teacher before I started my business. And I pictured myself doing that my whole life, right? Like I liked it enough. It was like, I'm pretty good at this. I like kids. It's enjoyable. I did not like being watched. Like when the principal would come in to like do like reviews or whatever, like I'd have to like do a demo lesson and things. Didn't enjoy that. Don't enjoy people telling me when I'm doing things like that I should be doing them better or whatever. Like I like to be in control, which is just not the case when you don't run your own business. And so I kind of stumbled into network marketing, right? Like the little gateway drug for coaches in 2015. So this is going back a long time now,
Wow.
just because I wanted to lose weight. And I started sharing my like journey with, I did the 21-day fix, which I like saw while I was on the treadmill at the gym. And I was like, ooh, this sounds like a good idea, like on the infomercial, And I started sharing about it on Instagram because I knew that was the only way I was going to stay consistent because I've always been big on like loving social media. And, a Beachbody coach reached out to me. It was like, you could make money from this. I was like, oh, that's cool. And then like 4 years of building network marketing came through. And that's when I got introduced, like, oh my gosh, like I can make millions of dollars just like sitting at home, And so my vision at that point of time also obviously was like, I'm going to be the #1 Beachbody coach. Like it's going to be amazing. And then I realized like, no, that's first of all really, really hard. And I don't have the dedication to build to the top of a network marketing company. And also I wanted, again, more freedom to do what I wanted to be able to do. So I started branching out and doing mindset-based programs, like personal development-based programs, spirituality, manifestation, which was all stuff that I had really learned a lot about coming into the business world. And eventually I decided to get some certifications under my belt so that I knew that what I was providing to people was actually like worked, right? And I wasn't just like, I feel like there's so much power in just teaching off of your own or coaching off of your own experience. But then when you learn a technique or a modality to really help people go deeper, that's what I wanted to do. And from there, it's all just really grown. Like I lived in New Jersey at the time. I have since then moved to San Diego where I met my husband. Now I have my baby here and I have this business where I certify new coaches because what it really has come down to is I think that there's this big rhetoric in the like online coaching space where people shame like stop being a coach who coaches coaches. Like you shouldn't only coach coaches. And I think that, yeah, everyone can benefit from having a coach. Like you can be a fitness coach or a self-love coach for humans who are not coaches, but like coaches are humans too. And I love being like working with people who completely get me and we can like vibe on pretty much every single level and helping them create and shift their lives in the way that I have. Because now, like as a new mom, it just blows my mind how different my life looks now as a parent as it would have if I had not taken like this path and made these decisions and done these things. So helping people figure out how to do that in their way is just like the most rewarding thing and what I want to do like forever.
I love that. That's so funny too with the coaches coaching coaches rhetoric. Like, what if we said like doctors stop teaching other doctors, or dentists don't teach other, like, how is that different? Like, don't we want to elevate the standard of coaches out there? Like, I want a coach who has had some certifications and some trainings,
Right. Yeah, that drives me crazy. And I've thought about that before too. Like, are we telling like real estate agents don't teach other real estate? Like, who do you want to teach you then? Like, who do you want working with you? And like, there's so much room for so many types of coaches. And, there are plenty of coaches who coach people who aren't coaches. So there's nothing wrong with doing what you're doing if it feels good. The problem comes in when we listen to all of that stuff and we're like, no, let me not do it. And then we start trying to do something that doesn't align with us. Like, I've done that plenty of times. You let like all those thoughts get in the way. But no.
Yeah. So funny. We have so many parallels. I used to be in the not kindergarten, but preschool. Well, I taught a little bit in kindergarten, but I was a traveling preschool dance teacher. So I'm familiar with that, like loving the work and like loving the kids and all that, but like making no money. And like directors and stuff, like now as going through my own healing and all that, I know that they're under a lot of stress and they're like wanting to have power in their life too. So then they'll take it out on us little teachers who are just in there trying to do our best. But anyways, there's that parallel, which I love. And then the Beachbody thing too. And I'm curious for you with where you are now as a coach who certifies other coaches. How did it feel when you started with Beachbody and they were just like, you want to be a coach? Great, you're a coach. And there was there's like training and they tell you, they support you and everything. But for me, it was like a big decision, like, okay, I'm going to sign on this thing and I'm going to be a coach. And it took a lot of thought. And then I did it. And then my upline was okay, here you go. You're it. I was like, that's it. I am. It felt like a lot in my hands, like to support other people through this thing that I wasn't really ready for. I don't know if that you had any similarities to that.
Yes. Oh gosh, I do. Like I'm not like anti MLM, right? I think a lot of people come out of MLMs and they're like, they preach against it and all this stuff. From being on the other side of it now, I can see the problems with it. And I can also see like the beauty of it, right? And the huge benefits. And I'm like, that was the catalyst that changed my life. So I'm forever like grateful for it. Yes. I wish that every Beachbody coach, every like network marketer who is in charge of helping people through things, like especially with Beachbody, right? It's such a specific one because we're not like selling makeup. We're like helping people make a really big lifestyle change with like health and fitness and nutrition. And I look back and I'm like, ooh, I was teaching people how to eat. I didn't know that. I was regurgitating information that Beachbody gave to me, but they were, you were encouraged to do it in your own way and with your own words. So I don't know if what I was kind of giving was healthy for everyone. It probably wasn't. So I think that there's kind of some problems around that. And I wish that every Beachbody coach would go through like coaching certification so that they knew how to speak to people in a way that was actually going to facilitate change, and so that they could like make some more money on the side. Because if you're a network marketer, like, it's hard to like work your way up and actually be making money that you're not just like spending back on like your Shakeology or whatever it is that you have to purchase. Right. But yeah, I definitely feel that. Like, I think that there's a lot of responsibility. And like you said, like you just become a coach. And one of my issues was always like, okay, again, with Beachbody, you're encouraged to sign people up because they want to lose weight or get healthy or whatever. And then you're like, hey, I want to build a business and be a coach. And I just happened to luck out that I was a person who wanted to lose weight and was also like entrepreneurial. But I learned very quickly that everyone that I signed up to be a coach was not everyone wants to run it like a business. And it takes a lot of freaking work, which means that you have to have a lot of like desire and drive to make it work.
Yeah.
And I think that there's like some miscommunication there that obviously like the corporate side of all these businesses want to drive that, like anyone can do it so that they get as many signups as possible. But I think that it harms the image overall.
Yeah. So let's include motherhood into this whole thing. So I just, from following you and, being friends and having mutual friends, I kind of know your journey. And it's like, I guess COVID happened too, but you built up this really successful business, certain income milestones that you were hitting. And then it's like, okay, now you're pregnant. And walk me through like kind of your perception versus reality, or like what you thought it was going to be like to have this baby and continue your business versus what the reality's been?
My gosh, that's a really good question, because I guess if I think back to like before I got pregnant, and like maybe even before I met my husband, when, it's like the elusive picture of like marriage and motherhood is in the future, right? I'm like, oh, I'm going to be all set. I'm going to be like making all this money, like recurring income, and my business is going to be good to go. And whatever, now I'll just have a baby and it'll be so fun and I'll be able to stay home with my baby. And I didn't have like the actual clear-cut picture in my mind. Like, what does that mean to stay home and work with a baby at home? Like, I was a babysitter and a nanny, and like I worked at daycare since I was like 14 years old. That's what I did my whole life. And then I worked with kids. So I thought I knew kids and I thought I knew babies. And since becoming a mom, I'm like, like, did I know that much? I don't know. It's just that when it becomes like 24/7, there's, I always thought, oh, I'll work while the baby naps, or, she can play and I'll get my stuff done. And like, that is just not feasible right now. My cousin's here watching her in the living room because there's no way that she would not need me for 2 hours while we do to record 2 podcast episodes. And so that's been like a huge obvious realization for me. And again, I've worked with coaches for a long time, and a lot of them are like, well, I'm a mom, I don't have time to do this. I'm like, oh, we'll try to do it during nap time or whatever, giving the advice that I had at the time when I had no idea what I was talking about. So I'm sorry if to anyone out there who I gave that advice to, or who was receiving that advice now, and you're just rolling your eyes. That was one part of it. And then there were there's just like so many aspects to it. I know that like we're going to talk on my podcast next about like mom guilt, which is like a huge piece of it. Like, I want to be working and like getting my stuff done because I need to make money and I need to help provide for my family. And I want to show my daughter, like, you can do whatever you want to do. And this is my passion and this is my dream. But then I feel guilty for being away from her, but I feel guilty for not doing it because, it's all of this, like, just mess of things. And that's definitely the two like main camps, like time and guilt, that come into it that I did not like see clearly before.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nuts. There's certain things when you're leading up to it where you have the baby and like certain parts of it, like the unconditional love or like love you've never experienced. Like, oh my gosh, that is the most true thing. That was the truth. Everything else I've had to take with a grain of salt and like make my own experience because every baby's different. I'm wondering if there's a couple examples of like maybe funny stories or just examples of, before you had Violet, like, oh, this is going to be for sure going to happen, or I'm going to be able to do this. And then how it like went entirely the other way.
Okay. So the first thing that's coming to my mind is I was like, okay, I'm going to take like a 2 to 3 month maternity leave, and then I'm going to jump back in and it's going to be great. Honestly, it probably would have been easier for me to work while she was like 0 to 3 months old than it's been from like 3 to 6 months now, because
I heard that on the Goal Digger podcast, actually, with Jenna Kutcher. She had 2 other moms on, and they were saying how it's all entrepreneurs. And they were like, those first 3 months are when you can actually get work done because they're just little sleeping lumps.
Yes. It's like you're tired and your body kind of hurts, but like I could like sit and type emails if I needed to, right? Like I could get things done, but now no. And like, I feel like I imagined myself, and I did kind of grapple with it. Like when I got pregnant, I was like, do I want to keep building a business? Like, do I want to just like set my expectations lower for like how abundant of a lifestyle we'll live and just like live off of my husband's income and not worry about it and just be a mom? And, that's been kind of like on my mind from when I got pregnant up until recently, where I've realized like, no, I really like what I do. I just want to be able to find a way to do it that works with, being a mom and like having enough time for that part of my life. But I think that, yeah, some of the images that I had were like, okay, I can do things while she naps, which like you and I, before we started recording, we're just talking about how sleep is like, you don't know when they're going to sleep. I can't schedule a podcast interview for nap time because I don't know when nap time is every day. And like one of the funny things I'm thinking of is when so Amy and I hopped on like a quick call just to discuss like what we're going to talk about on these podcast interviews. And I had Violet with me, obviously. And so I'm just like, showing her to Amy, and then all of a sudden just like spit up everywhere, like right onto the floor, all down her shirt. Like it was just like the most like comedic timing too, where I like just turned the camera there. And I feel like that is like the image of motherhood. Like as soon as I'm like sitting down to do something, I'm needed. Right. And that was like in like oh my gosh, more spit up. But sometimes it's like, okay, I'm sitting down, I'm finally getting something typed up. And then like, bang, I hear a fall because she's like 6 months old and she thinks she can like stand and walk and she cannot. Right. And so she's like collapsing all the time. And then there's like a scream and then you have to go and you get interrupted from every little thing that you're doing. And it's just a lot of work. I thought that I could do it without help, I guess. Yet I thought like, oh, maybe like when she's a little older, I can get someone to come, but that's just not been true at all.
Yeah. Yeah. I've deemed my family, and I think you have a similar dynamic where I call us a micro family because it's really just me and my husband and my baby. Like all our family around us is in a different state or really far away. So like I don't have a grandma or an auntie that if I have to do something, I can just call them up and be like, hey, come over. A lot of people have that. And I don't know if you can speak at all to like what that's been like for you, even emotionally, to like not have that support, the whole it takes a village thing. It's like, well, I don't live where I grew up. So my village is elsewhere, and like I feel like that's not spoken about a lot either. So I'm wondering about your experience with that.
Yeah. I love this conversation because it really does, like, it makes me sad sometimes. And like I'm from New Jersey, Curtis is from Tennessee, and we live in California. So like everyone's far away. I do have just randomly happen to have two cousins who live in San Diego. That's how I have one here babysitting now, which is great, but it's different than, like you said, having a grandma, right? Like I pay my cousins to come over and babysit. It's like a thing. But if I could be like, Mom, like every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, can Violet come hang out with you? She would do it for free. And that would be amazing.
You're like, no, she can come Monday through Friday. Thanks.
Exactly. She's like, just move her in, please. Like, I don't know. So that's definitely hard because it feels like everything needs more planning, right? And it's especially if you're an entrepreneur and it's like let's say like you're just starting to get like income generated through your business. It's like now you have to pay a babysitter to come while you're doing things that you don't even know when the money is going to show up from them, right? Like maybe you're doing podcast interviews and you need a babysitter. Podcast interviews don't pay, right? Maybe in the future they do because it's that exposure and all this stuff. But it's different than having like, if I have like a one-on-one call that I'm getting paid for and then paying someone to come. But there's those pieces of it. And then, yeah, emotionally, it's definitely like messes with me. We went to New Jersey for a month this summer. And it's been rough because since Violet was born, I've been kind of trying to convince Curtis, like, let's move back to the East Coast. Like, we'll be closer to both of our families. It'll be easier. It's a big trip it's 6 hours across the country to basically to either of our like hometowns. And then we went home to New Jersey for a month and I was like, oh, I love California so much. Like, I don't know if I could imagine moving back, but then like being back here again and feeling alone. I love that term that you used, micro family. Like I'm going to steal that because that's exactly how I feel. It's like, I have to schedule, Curtis will get Sundays off and then one other random day a week. And I usually have to fill up his random weekday off with all of my work stuff. And then we only have Sundays together as a family because it's like trying to organize all of that. And then knowing that like, I want my daughter to grow up like with her cousins and like her grandparents, which is what being an entrepreneur makes that better because I know that like I can just take her there when I need to and work from anywhere, which is really great. So, there's different pieces to it, but it for sure like makes everything like emotionally harder and work wise. I'm like, it could be so much easier.
Mm-hmm.
If we had that.
Yeah. And I know we are both fortunate to have supportive partners. So I'm wondering if there's any surprises, like good surprises, like let's talk up our partners a little bit about how they've stepped up in ways that surprise you.
Oh, I like that question. Because yes, I always like watch your stories and I love seeing you guys in your little like family outings. And you guys like, what did you like sneak into a pumpkin patch this weekend, by the way?
Yes, we did. We didn't even sneak in. No one is not staffed at all, but the doors were open. So, and like the petting zoo was out, like the games were not running, but like the prizes were out. So we just like had we had our little photo ops and then we left.
So good. So
Yeah.
funny. You could have like walked away with free pumpkins if you were, not as nice of a person.
I did not leave with a free pump. No, I did not, because that would be a bad karma pumpkin and I don't need that.
Oh, good job. Good for you. No free pumpkins and no free like petting zoo animals. But yeah, so I love that. And I love the conversation around like good partners. I feel like I don't know about you, but I joined like a lot of like due date groups when I got pregnant. And it's just like no judgment, because I've been in relationships where I know like if I had had a baby with those men, like I wouldn't have the support that I do now. And that's just how some people are. And I think that there's like different aspects to it, right? Like who Curtis is as a person and who I was when I met him and the expectations I laid out. Like I'm not doing this stuff on my own. And like what I was expecting. And it's ended up being really like a collaborative effort in parenting, which I'm really happy about. So yeah, on his days off, especially like usually he'll have like a Wednesday off or something like that if he's not off on Saturday. And he's been this is just the past few weeks now, but he's been taking Violet out of the house for like 2 hours, like just the two of them to have a little like bonding time. And that's been so nice. They just go sit at like a park or something. And it makes me feel good because I'm like, okay, now they're having alone time where I'm not, as a mom, you're kind of like always like butting in, like, ooh, don't do it that way. Or no, she likes this better. Like, I know better, but he knows good enough. Right. So it gives them time for like to do that. And it also gives me time to get work done, especially if it's like a weekday or if it's a weekend and he takes her out. Usually I'll just like let myself be at home alone because I'm never home alone anymore. And that's really nice. And then, yeah, having that just kind of like even split of like responsibilities. Obviously, I'm home all day, so I do more of the like home-based stuff, even though like I work less hours, like 100%. So, but like he'll still come home and he'll like do the dishes and wash her bottles and like throw her laundry in and throw my laundry in. He just bought me a vacuum yesterday, which like I've never been so excited. He was cracking up. He's like, I didn't think that you were going to be this happy. I like immediately leapt up and vacuumed the house. It's like a cordless one. So exciting. But there's like just that even split of things, which while sometimes I'm like crying to him, like, I can never get any work done around here. I don't know what to do. Like when I express that, there's like usually a solution is on its way, right? Like, so I can like let my feelings be heard and he kind of just like hears it. And then the next day off, he has this plan to like help me get things done. And I feel like that feels so good.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I don't know where they learned it either, because like my dad was visiting when Cece, my daughter, was a newborn, and he looked at my mom. He's like, I didn't do any of that stuff with her. Because same, Jeff's like washing bottles and like switching over the laundry and doing all the things. And I don't know where they picked it up, but something went right and
Right?
something to have that be supportive and like for us not to have to ask. Sometimes there's like reminders because you don't know what you don't know. So which is something I had to actually had this revelation in therapy like last year, because I was like having some tension and I was getting frustrated with things. And basically it was just communication,
Mm-hmm.
so and that's with all things in life, I feel like. But for parenting, I would get frustrated because when we were leaving the house, I would feel rushed or something. And then it was just brought to my attention, like, did you tell him that? Or like, does he know what he can be doing to help you? And I'm like, shit, no, he doesn't know that.
Supposed to guess, actually.
Yeah, it's just to be a mind reader. It was in our vows.
I love that.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's definitely like, I feel that also like having that communication really helps. And sometimes I have to remind myself not to like just drop hints because it feels good to have people like read your mind and like I'll do that. But now, especially with like the baby involved, I'm like, I know, like when you know what you need, if you can just say it and you have a partner who like respects you and your time and like I feel like I always try to catch myself too, because I think I don't know, as a woman, we're surrounded by so much content that's like, make sure you have a man who supports you and does this and does that. And sometimes I'm like, ooh, am I doing that for him too? Right? Like, am I just demanding all of these things because I'm like, my man's supposed to help me in this way without making sure that I'm still like, showing up for him. So that's been a big like check myself moment all the time too, when I notice myself communicating a lot of needs. I think that sometimes he doesn't as easily communicate his needs, like maybe because he's too proud to, or, he doesn't think he has to, or whatever the reason. I'm always like, what can I do? Is there anything that like way that I can help make this easier, or anything that's on your mind? And that has helped also.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And it's not something like we've both been through a lot of like inner work, and, it's not something you're really born with or oftentimes modeled. I feel like the generation, even from our parents to now, like relationship dynamics have changed so much.
So much. Yeah. Yeah. Like what you said about your dad saying I never did any of that or whatever. Like I know my dad didn't. And I grew up with like a great parent.
Yeah,
Yeah. I'm
feels
like,
great.
my dad, like I thought he did a great job. But like now I'm like, ooh, mom, you probably did a lot of stuff alone that like if I was doing that alone, I would be like puddle on the floor, like help.
Yeah.
Like not here for that. But yeah.
Yeah, totally. I'm wondering if there are any like specific like products, or so I have a friend right now she's going to have a baby in a couple months, and she's like, what was your favorite thing on your registry? So do you have any like specific tips or things that you ordered for yourself after that, like more people should know about for newborns as a working mama?
Let's see. Okay, so this is this is like a very like random thing that probably you don't hear recommended that much. But and this is for all moms, working moms, non-working moms, whatever. Buy it for moms because they're going to need it. And it's literally the cheapest thing on Amazon. It's like just like pee pads basically. So we have like our changing table, right? And like you put the little sheet on it and it's so cute. And I didn't realize like I had a girl. I'm like, oh, I don't have to worry about them peeing during a diaper change. Oh, that's a lie. I just don't really have to worry about her peeing in my face. She peed pretty much like, I don't know what was wrong with her. It was like as soon as the air hit her, like immediate pee every time for like the first like 3 months of her life. And then it would be just like randomly after that. And so I ordered these like things from Amazon that I just would put on her changing table, or we still put them out, like if we change her on the floor or something like that, because it makes the cleanup so much easier. Like seriously, look them up because that's like my number one thing. Cause I'm like, I know that's not something that people are normally recommending, like, oh, get the chair, or the swing, or the, the snoo, or whatever all those things are called. But that's my thing. Well, one of my things, definitely.
I love that. Yeah, bodily functions are going to be pretty across the board, like swings and bouncy chairs. That's very much like to the individual baby, I think. Because we got a bouncy chair and we got a swing. She kind of liked the bouncy chair, but I think I was pushing it on her to like it, and she was not interested in the swing. But yeah, we had those pee pads too. But now I'm realizing that I wasn't even using them right. I was putting them under the sheet.
Oh no, you gotta put them on. They make it look way less cute, but no, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. We had like all like the chairs, like the bouncy chair and stuff like that too. And I think the same thing, I kind of forced her into liking it because I was like, I need a minute for you to be like not attached to me. But definitely most of that stuff is, each baby is so different. And I only know that from being recommended so many things that she was like, no, thanks. Like not interested,
Yeah. I like to remind people too that we live in the age of Amazon, and especially if you're in a big city, if you need something, you can literally get it delivered to your house, if not that day, the day after. So to like save yourself some stress of creating the perfect registry, because it doesn't exist. So
yeah. Yeah. And also like remember knowing that things come up, like time passes so freaking quick as a mom. I feel like now I'm realizing, ooh, those things that I didn't put on my registry, like, like little plates and stuff for like eating and things. I'm like, because I thought, oh, that's so far in the future, I'll just get them later. I'm like, that would be nice to have in a drawer somewhere now, but like knowing that time does pass quickly. So if you're thinking of adding things to the registry that you won't need for like 6 months to a year, it's not wrong to add them.
right. Yeah. I say bulk up that registry as
Yeah.
much as you want and send it to everybody.
Exactly. Like people don't have to buy things just because they're on there, but they can't know what to buy you until they do. But I'm like a huge proponent of like, especially now, I didn't understand this before becoming a mom, but I'm like, buy from people's registries. Like, oh, it's so fun to go pick out a cute little outfit, but if you're going to pick out an outfit, like also buy them like the boring bottle dryer that's on the registry, because like there are things that people need. And now I'm like, oh, I really understand that. So that's
Yeah.
another tip that I have
Yeah.
for,
Totally. Don't go rogue. Don't guess. Just follow the registry.
yes, exactly.
So one more thing, talking about like that maternity leave or like the fourth trimester, that for me was like the hardest period. Like breastfeeding was a disaster. So
Mm.
for me, so I'm wondering what advice you have with that and like how you kind of I don't even know like how integrated you were in your business. Like if you took like a month, like off, like nothing, or a little dabble. Cause it's hard to like, for me, it was hard to go off. Cause I'm
Okay.
very connected to my like online community, you would say. So I'm wondering what specifically those 3 months were like for you.
Yeah. So, I feel like, first of all, at the end, like end of like the second, well, really like my second trimester and like beginning of my third trimester, I was hit with like intense energy. Most people are. I was like, wow, I've never felt like this before in my life. You're like cleaning out all of your cabinets and things and, nesting. And I started getting really organized in my business and like setting myself up. And I remember the coach I was working with, she was like, you're nesting in your business. And I was like, that's exactly what I'm doing. Like, so I took advantage of that energy and I set up like different, ways to get recurring income. And, I recorded a bunch of podcast episodes so that could keep going out. And I had an assistant who was set to kind of like keep some things going on my social media when it came to like promotions for passive courses and programs and stuff. And I'm kind of the same as you just described. Like, it's hard for me to completely disconnect. Like, and I didn't really want to completely disconnect. Again, that's kind of where the mom guilt came in. I kind of felt like I should be like taking completely off, shouldn't I? Like, shouldn't I be taking advantage of just being with her and not doing other things? But I don't know. I mean, I didn't do that. It didn't work out fully that way. I was lucky. My mom flew out for a month and stayed with us. So that was really helpful. I don't know how different my experience would have been without her here because, Curtis took a week off and that was all he took because he was going to take his paternity leave later on. And it, that fourth trimester, like postpartum, like newly postpartum, my body's doing all of these weird things. Like I'm afraid that my stitch is ripped, like, and I can't look because I'm so grossed out. And, all of those things were so kind of intense and heavy on my mind that I can't imagine having tried to plug right back into work. Like, honestly, I've watched some like coach moms on Instagram who have given birth, and the fact that they're like showing up and like doing so much so soon after, I'm like, how do you have like the capacity for it? Like, I'm very impressed. And maybe they have systems in place, that I'm not seeing the back end of, and this is stuff that's been done before or whatever. But I just feel like the main like the hardest part about all of that was really like my body. Like we said before, like the baby was pretty simple at that point, right? Like there are obviously like the hard things, like is she, I'm constantly worried, like, is she breathing? Like, is she in the right position to be sleeping? Like, she fell asleep in her chair. Do I have to move her because she's slightly elevated, whatever, all those worries. But the biggest challenge was my body and like the pain that I was feeling and the unknowns and probably like the hormones and stuff. So eventually I feel like I had planned to take up to 3 months off, and then I was just going to like trickle back in. And that did end up being what kind of worked for me once I got a little bit more of my energy back. And I wanted to be like, a lot of my job, I'm like, in order for me to sell, I've got to be on social media. I've got to be creating content. And when I started getting some energy back to do that, I just did. And I had kind of set myself up to mostly work for the certification now versus creating new programs and signing a bunch of one-on-one clients and getting money in a way that would require me to do something extra. It was like, let me do what I already have to do anyway, which is like show up and teach on these certification calls. And, obviously I get commission when I bring people into the program itself. So let me just focus on selling that. And so for a long time, that's really all I did. Now I'm kind of getting to the point where I'm like, I feel like myself again. I think that like there's a period of time where you go through like, okay, who am I going to be as a mother? I think it kind of, obviously I'm sure that's going to be ever evolving, but right now I feel like pretty solid and I know who I am right now as a mom, and I feel less guilty for wanting to work and wanting to do what I love. So branching out, like taking a couple more like private clients alongside the certification growth. But that, yeah, it was a trickle, right? And it was like letting myself do things in a way that did not, for me personally, it was like I felt very unorganized and like people probably didn't know what was going on. And yeah, I did not make as many sales as I would have if I had been like 100%. But I think that that's what was necessary in order for me to get like from there to here. I had to just kind of let myself slowly evolve back into it. And I feel like that allowed me to respect like, okay, my new time as a mom, my time with Violet, and hopefully have other people see like, okay, like this is what my priorities are. And like my top value now is my family. Like that's why I'm doing all of this. So that's going to come first, regardless of anything else that's happening in the business. And I think that that's hopefully been made clear, like with that break and things. But yeah, that's kind of how I handled it.
Yeah, I love that. I love that too. That made me think of like being an entrepreneur and having control over your maternity leave too. Because when you're working for someone else, people in this country go back to work after like 6 weeks.
I cannot believe that.
I know.
It infuriates me.
Yeah.
Infuriates.
Yeah.
Whole other subject, but
Yeah, that's like a whole other series of podcasts, but it is a beautiful thing to be able to have that control. As messy and like chaotic and weird as it can be at times, it's still really nice to have that. And dips in income, like it is what it is. But
exactly. Like it's so amazing if your business is to a point where you don't have to show up and it still generates money, right? Like I think that obviously that's goals, right?
yeah.
That's not where my business was at all. And so, yeah, we had to really accept like a dip in income and know that, okay, I'm going to need to adjust some like business expenses and my own expenses. Like I don't get monthly facials anymore right now. Like, okay, that's going to be on the list when it starts, picking back up as it is right now. But making those decisions definitely, was necessary.
Yeah. Any final thoughts for our audience today?
Well, I have a question for you actually to flip it around. But like, so Cece, like your daughter is older than mine. How old is she now?
2.5.
2.5. Yeah. So she's like 2 years older. So what's been like the difference between, or like, how has it changed from when she was a baby to like now with like handling entrepreneurship and motherhood?
Now I feel like there's more balance for me between the two. And I put her in full-time preschool at basically 18 months. Like we started at a couple days a week, and then kind of like slowly nudged her to full-time. So for me, that break of having her there in the hands of like trusted professionals has given me the time and space to like really focus on my business and grow it where I need to grow it. So that's been really pivotal for me to like have that space as her over here and me over here. And then when we come together, it's like a much more beautiful like relationship. Like kudos to moms who keep their kids home and all that. Like it's not my vibe. Like I believe in outsourcing everything and trusting professionals, which includes childcare. Like these people are amazing at what they do. And it's given me like the energetic space to focus on my business, but also having her and being a mom in general, it really helps you have like boundaries have become so much easier because if I need to go be with her or if she has a day off and I can't be available or whatever, it's not a question anymore as to before it would have been like, oh, I don't know, I'm going to upset this person. That's gotten easier. And then just having her when she's away also then I can be fully focused on work. And then when she's here, I can be fully focused on her. Whereas when she was here as a baby, I had a nanny at home with me. She'd be like downstairs, and it was never a full concentration on work because if I can hear her, she's my daughter. She doesn't even have to make a sound and you can know, or like when you're breastfeeding, it was so crazy to me when I first started breastfeeding, and like your nipples would like tingle like before you even hear the baby cry. And then a second later they cry and you're like, how did that, what? Like the female body is wild. But yeah, I guess for me, having her older now and being able to be away when like at school, and that's when I'm working, and when she's home, that's when I'm momming, has been like a really beautiful thing for us where we are now.
I love to hear that because I'm just, thinking ahead. And I think that that's the exact definite description of right now. Like, okay, she's in the living room, and if you guys are watching on YouTube, you saw me like making faces at the door a few minutes ago because my cousin had to bring her so that she can see me. Because if she's here and I'm here, like she needs eyes on me sometimes. And I feel like for right now, I'm good with that. But as she gets older, like knowing that there can be a separation of like, okay, I can get everything done now because I'm not wondering when nap is going to be and when, fill in the blank. So
yeah, it's a fun chapter right now.
Yeah. Oh, so fun. I love 2-year-olds too. They're so funny. And she's probably getting a little sassy, just like,
a little, please.
Coming out. I love it.
Yeah.
So fun.
Well, thank you so much for hanging out with me. And can you share with everybody how they can connect with you?
Yes. Yeah. So I am at lilynicole.co on Instagram and TikTok. TikTok is more of a lifestyle fun thing for me. If you're more looking for coaching stuff, Instagram's the place to hang out. And my podcast is called The Lily Nicole Show. Amy's going to be on, we're doing that interview next. So come listen to that episode. And yeah, that's all the places that I'm at. I would love to connect with you guys and let me know if you loved this episode. We'll have a little conversation in the DMs about motherhood and business because this is just, I could talk about this stuff all day now.
Yes, totally. Awesome. Thank you. And for anyone listening who wants to connect with me, Instagram at Amy Leisner, TikTok at Amy Leisner, this show, and then everything else you want to find me from will be found. All that info is found on Instagram or TikTok. So start there. All right. Well, thank you so much. And I will see you in 1 minute.
Yay. Okay. Bye.